to feel the full range as a human being, both the feminine and masculine, to feel the whole range of emotions, sadness, despair, grief, happiness, jubilation, joy, with others and with yourself and with nature, I think are paramount to the human existence. So how do we translate that onto film? How do we take these moments, emotional moments, and translate them? So as a child, I was very emotional and still am, but I'm channeling those emotions to tell stories and to connect with people and to feel the suffering of the human existence, but also the incredible gift that we have to be here as sensual beings.
Welcome to the Legendary Podcast, an invitation into intimate, soul-bearing conversations with the gods and goddesses of our Burning Man camp, the legendary playground of the gods. Here, you'll meet the visionaries, wisdom keepers, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and edge walkers who make up this extraordinary soul family. Together, we'll journey through the turning points that shaped us, the failures, the victories, the breakdowns, and the breakthroughs, and what it truly means to rise and build something sacred from the ashes. If you've been searching for your people, if you've longed to find a community that inspires you to rise, you found your tribe. So join us now for another sacred journey. Welcome to the playground of the gods. Welcome to Legendary. Hello, legends, and welcome back to the Legendary Podcast. This is Celinne Costa, your guide and host for the journey today, which will be taking place with Derek Smith. Derek, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Celine. What's up, legendary folks?
Yeah, we're going to dive in deep with Derek, who's one of the souls that I met personally on the burn. I actually just saw him a few months ago in April, and we got to drop in. This man is just an incredible soul, a storyteller. I will let him tell you what it is that he does and what he's creating in life. But yeah, as from one storyteller to another, I'm super excited for us to dive in to your story and your past and your present and the future and everything you're creating. So without further ado, Derek, can you share with us, what is it that you do in life, in work? What's really exciting you and lighting you up in life right now?
Thanks, Celine. I am a storyteller. I found the path at 7 years old when my grandfather brought a camera home and we made a movie. Originally, I wanted to be an archaeologist because I loved Indiana Jones and adventure and the whips and the relics. And then when my grandfather started recording, he would stop the camera and start and stop the camera and start. And as a kid, I go, why are you doing that? He goes, no, we're going to piece it all together at the end and tell this story. So Harrison Ford didn't deliver the entire movie in one take. He goes, no, that's not how movies are made. So then I had this inkling of like, wow, we can bend reality to tell any story we want. I want to be, who made Indiana? And he said, Steven Spielberg. And I go, that guy. Like, I want to be that guy. So I found my path as a filmmaker and storyteller when I was young and studied it for 30 years now. And now I'm a professional videographer, writing scripts for bigger films and just capturing this incredible life that we've had, and tell stories that haven't been told.
You know, what I really love about your share, and we're only 2 minutes in, is you using the word archaeology. That lit me up. I have a methodology around storytelling, and we're it's same, but very different in the ways that we show up and do our storytelling, weaving around the world. But there's an entire section called soul archaeology. And behind this is a concept that for us to really be able to tell the truth of our story, we must dig deeper into our soul. That's where the magic comes from. And it feels to me that you knew this, you understood it intuitively as a child. And I'm curious, when you were with your grandfather and you're like, wait, they break things up, and you somehow discovered the magic of what would soon, or become your career. Can you share more about why that struck you so much? What was happening in your life as a child where this thing came in and you were like, whoa, this is what I want to do?
A great prompt. Movies are the new myths in our culture. I think we can all think about how a movie affected us as a kid or when we learn something and, you know, I become a hopeless romantic because of the happily ever after, but then that a capital truth, like if you're watching a fictional movie like a sci-fi film, let's say The Matrix, you can stop and say, this is a true story. And what I mean by truth is a capital T truth. Sure, the machines and the robots and Neo with his superpowers is myth, but it's the underlying values and fundamentals and stories that make a story true. And the myths, we are a culture raised on myths from thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And soul archaeology is digging up those stories of who we really are, what we tell ourselves, and most importantly, what is the story we want to create? Because creation is God energy, and we're here to create and destroy, and I want to create. I want to tell stories, and I want to influence people with stories in a way that I was influenced as a child to tell the stories that haven't been told.
Mm. So, twice now, you've said to tell the stories that haven't been told. And I can sense that behind those words is a lot of wisdom and experience. If we were to double click on those words, what does that actually mean to you?
What it actually means to me, what comes to mind is if we want to talk about archaeology, there's a lot of archaeology has been written by the winners, and people like Graham Hancock are uncovering more and more and more mysteries of a super advanced ancient culture that was Atlantis and Lemuria. So the archaeological themes stayed with me. And I studied that for years and years. And I go, there are great stories here, like the Great Flood and all the myths we find in the Bible, to bring those stories in. But also, I have actually lived a life of, let's say, a hedonist in a way. I love life. And I've spent years in being broke because I would spend all my money on the next surf trip and all my money on the next snowboarding trip or all the money on the next burn to have all these great, great, great experiences. So to tell the wisdom of the ancients, and then tell the story of Burning Man, and to tell the story of sacred sexuality or to tell the story about plant medicines, these have not been told in the zeitgeist. They have not been told in mainstream. And at this point in my life, I'm 45, I've looked back and it's like, how do you bring all these things together to tell your own unique story? We are all unique riding this path of life, and we all have a unique story to tell. So I think when you ask me, the stories that have not been told, not only the stories of the flavor of an exciting, fun, comedic, disastrous, traumatic life, but also of all these ancient technologies and gifts, sound technologies and things that I want to bring into the plot of these stories. This is what Avatar and Harry Potter and Star Wars and The Matrix have done. They've taken ancient philosophies, whether it's Buddhist or whatever it is, and they mix it into like an action. So what we do is we entertain. It's the Trojan horse to get people in. Then we educate. And at the end, hopefully we find an enlightenment in it.
I the other day I had Gary Malkin on the podcast, who's also in our camp. And it does not get lost on me that we were both speaking into he was also speaking into storytelling and music.
Mm.
And
Mm.
you both used the word Trojan horse in the same context, except he was speaking about music and awakening people's souls through music, and you're speaking about the visual arts. So I love this. Something else you shared that gave me pause, expanding on the topic of soul archaeology. As I understand it, teach it, have experienced it, in the process of excavating our souls, we find more than our actual individual story in this body, in this timeline. But we begin to access ancestral story, collective story, as you refer to the mythos, right? And these stories of the past and ancient future that repeat again, again, and again in history. And we get to tell those stories in a way that reverberates. When someone watches a movie and when someone listens to a piece, they can feel not just their own emotions, but the memory of times past.
Mhm.
I see you nodding. And so
Mhm.
I wanted to bring this through because I would love to get your take on this and how it's played out in your life, in your own visual storytelling.
Mm. Essentially, music. and visual filmmaking are mutually inclusive. I believe you can't have one without the other. The cadence of a film and the way it moves are the vibrations of the sound and the music really brings out that ancient knowledge, those ancient myths, the vibrations of it. We're all vibration ultimately. So in the storytelling, to really get an emotion, I really love the fact that Gary brought up the Trojan horse of music because they both work on a sub-perceptual level in our souls. You think about bass music and you go out to, you dance to bass music and the music moves you and you make like this face like, ooh, like that. That is just a nasty bass line. That's in our DNA from eras and epochs of drumming, in drum circles and gathering within something that is music, like electronic music or drums. It's a non-language connection that we create a coherence field together. And speaking about my life, you asked about my life and how that, kind of finds its way into the symphony of things. Harmonically speaking, there's just moments, and I think we've all had these moments where it's just sheer presence and beauty. Like I'm in a movie, like I am actually experiencing this film. And how do I take the beauty of this moment, whether it's making love to your beloved or petting your cat or tasting a delicious piece of sushi or just witnessing a sunset, because every sunset is unique. How does that tie into our own unique storytelling? And how do we bring that inspiration to others that may not see the world in the same way?
Mhm. As I'm hearing this, I'm curious about you and before you were the filmmaker, before you understood what you understand now. It takes a certain level of sensitivity and sensibility as a young man to even be able to perceive these things. And I'm curious about who you were as a child and what forces shaped you to be able to see the way you do.
Hmm. Great question, Celine. I'm really enjoying this. I was and am a very emotional being. And that can be alluded to, I don't know, Scorpio moon or just a tremendous capacity to love. I was a really hard child to raise, temper tantrums and lots of crying and just, why am I in this body? Fuck the world kind of energy. And I think there was a story that comes to mind was I remember I got into some kind of situation where I was crying and my grandmother's like, why are you crying? You're such a crybaby. You cry all the time. Must have been like 6. And I said, fine, I'm never going to cry again. And I didn't cry for 10 years. I just shut off that valve, and it was just like stepped highly into what we would call the logical mind or the ego for a long time and repressed these feelings of crying as a man and repressed these feelings of emotion. And those came back online when I had a human design reading. And it's like, you're just operating from your masculine tendencies this whole time. You're all logical. Like you need to feel emotions. And I remember my first cry after that. And I was almost embarrassed. And now I think to feel the full range as a human being, both the feminine and masculine, to feel the whole range of emotions, sadness, despair, grief, happiness, jubilation, joy with others and with yourself and with nature, I think are paramount to the human existence. So how do we translate that onto film? How do we take these moments, emotional moments, and translate them? So as a child, I was very emotional and still am. But I'm channeling those emotions to tell stories and to connect with people and to feel the suffering of the human existence, but also the incredible gift that we have to be here as sensual beings.
Mm. As a fellow Scorpio moon, I see you.
You feel me.
Ta-da! I feel you. I feel you. So, what does it take to translate these deep emotions into film? Because that is, you know, that's an art. Just like translating emotions into language.
Mm. You have to feel the full range and just go for it. Really, go for that deepest love and love as much as you can, even given the very fact that all of this is impermanent. You will lose everything you love. You will lose everything you have. Every time you really love or give yourself to an emotion, you share the risk of being hurt. And I think the full range of emotions is what the human experience is. So to feel and to really, you know, go after what's really exciting without fear. And fear is the emotion too. You know, what scares you the most when you go after it, there are tremendous gifts on the other side of that. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, I love when you said, giggled to myself when you said, well, you just feel the full range of emotions and then you just go for it. But underneath those words is a whole journey.
Tell me about that.
And yeah, that many just, it's, it's challenging unless that was modeled for us since we were children, unless we had the level of caretaking that would have the capacity to really be able to support highly, sensitive, intuitive, empathic children. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, a lot of people don't. And, speaking into the field that is this camp, that is us, so empathic and so intuitive as a collective, feel it's worth digging deeper into what does it actually mean to feel the full range? Like, what was your unique experience with learning how to feel the full range of emotions? And what does it actually mean to you to quote unquote go for it?
We've been given this tremendous gift of this incarnation. We don't know why we're here. What is our purpose, really? But what I'm finding is we have a choice when given stimulus on how we want to react. Viktor Frankl talks about this, all the mystics talk about it. It's not what exactly happens in life, it's how your reaction. And that, in turn, your perception becomes your reality. And I have it tattooed on my forearm in Sanskrit. It's like a reminder in good times that like you perceive, and in bad times too. How do you react to this? So, anyways, we're given a choice here, and we don't know what it is, but we can really make our life what we want it to be by feeling everything that we have and everything that comes our way, but also to choose. I choose happiness and I choose excitement and I choose fun unabashedly without any guilt. And I believe that has led me to a wonderful path. You know, when the path of filmmaking, I was very lucky with my family because I told them like, hey, I want to make movies. And they said, we support you, follow your passion and the money will come. You live in this life and you go for it. And I believe abundance, providence will allow you to walk this path essentially.
Mhm. Thank you. And for you, as a child who was very in tune with his emotions, what were the challenges you needed to overcome in order for you to be able to feel your full range and express it through your art?
I think the ego comes into play at this point. I was very well loved as a child, so I expected a lot of love in return. And when I wasn't receiving that, it was like, how do I people please? How do I become liked? How do I become cool? So I think I went the route of humor, you know? I would try to be funny and try to make fun of life. We take life seriously, or yeah, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We take life seriously. And I think by looking at things in a humorous way, it's another Trojan horse to allow deeper meanings and deeper. You go to a comedy set and like everyone laughs because there is a certain truth behind the ridiculousness of what the comedian is saying, but it's delivered in a way that is not like, hey, listen, this is the truth. Like let's say the news or politicians would do. It's like, oh, there's this really funny thing about life, and everyone's like, oh, of course, of course. So to answer that question, I think when I've done archetype work, when I've done a lot of spiritual work throughout my life, I was very lucky again at a young age to get on the spiritual path very young. I was seeking at a young age, seeking love, but seeking God, which, are kind of interwoven with each other now that I've realized that. And it's the archetype of the trickster. It's the archetype of the coyote, the joker. It's like you can tell the power of a shaman or a spiritual master by the sound of his laughter. Life is funny. It's funny. It's strange. And I think by using humor and like laughing at things. In Austin, we have a lot of really dense spiritual circles, which is a beautiful thing, but sometimes it gets really heavy when everyone just wants to talk about how deep can we go? How spiritual can we get? And there's two paths. There's one, the people that are really walking the path, and there's the other where people are using spirituality as a identification. So when it gets really thick and really dense, I like to come in with like, hey man, we're sitting around doing this thing and, laugh on mushrooms, laugh on the ayahuasca, laugh at how silly we are in these human bodies trying to figure out what God really is with our limited capacity of perception. So I think that's humor, comedy, the divine comedy. It's a tragedy too. It's both. It's intermixed, but to choose humor, I think, is what I used growing up to be liked and to satisfy the ego for a while before you destroy the ego. And the last thing I'll say is, like Gandhi said something about, first you renounce the world and then you take it back on your own terms. And I think that's been the path with dissolving the ego. And you can't really dissolve it, but to make it like your teammate and use it
Mhm,
properly.
mhm, mhm. Well, speaking of humor, what I found to be funny about your share is you opened with, well, when I was a child, I was loved so much that when I went out into the world, I needed to people please in order to get that kind of love. And we can so just as easily superimpose someone saying, well, when I was a child, I didn't get the love I needed. And so I needed to go out and just do everything I needed to do in order to get love. And
Funny.
I find it so curious that, like we grow up the way we grow up, and we've got the conditioning and the things we got to clean up, regardless of what the quote unquote trauma or, conditions that were less than favorable are. But I find it interesting because, speaking of dense spiritual circles, sometimes I feel like there's this illusion that we're just gonna, because we're so lit, like we're just gonna raise the perfect children that are just gonna be like majestic little beings with no
Comedy.
trauma. But here you go, you can love the fuck out of them and they're still gonna grow up and people please somebody. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's really curious and humbling and sobering at the same time.
Hmm.
So, but what I want to take away from that as well is, from that thread of like, well, this is what happened, or this is how I was raised, this is how I overcompensated. But from that thread is such a beautiful gift of humor. And I'm going to use
Mm,
humor in the ways that I support other people in understanding reality. And life is funny. And so, what a
yeah.
beautiful gift for you to develop from that experience that you can now infuse into your craft. So, okay, I'm going to ask you another question.
Real quick, I want to ask you a question. What were the
Oh,
traumas that you had to dissolve growing up?
what is going on? I had an interview with Clint earlier today, and he asked me a question. I was like, that never happened before. Now it happened twice in one day.
Love Clint.
Okay.
We're cut from the same cloth.
God, are you guys scheming? What's going on?
We are. We
We're
had a
just
meeting before
turning the
this.
tables. Okay, ask me the question again. I'm ready now.
As I had to dissolve my own ego traumas to get liked by people and to find the love that my parents gave me, what were some of the traumas that you had to unravel to become the woman that you are today?
Thank you. When I think about the story, my story, or a story of a person, rather than thinking about it as a sequence of events, like this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and that happened, I see it as a spiral where the story continues to reveal the pattern underneath that your soul just wants to learn.
Mm,
And the events continue to happen, and they continue to happen in a sequence. But what's really happening is your soul's like, please learn this so you can evolve. Please. I am begging you.
so
And
stubborn.
so for me, a very core pattern of my own narrative arc has been, how do I stop the performance and come back to the truth, even when I'm very fucking scared? And what I mean by that
Mm,
is, how do I say what I'm feeling, even if it's the elephant in the room, even though I might be misunderstood, even though the person may not want to hear it, even they might turn against me, even though they might attack me? How do I still speak the raw truth of my heart and stand in my fire without needing to make myself small out of fear of
we're living in
harming?
the era of radical honesty and radical authenticity, and people need and want that so badly. And it takes
Yeah.
bravery to do that.
It takes a lot. So it's been a lifetime of finding the courage to say what I really mean without sugarcoating it and knowing I will be misunderstood and
Hmm.
not everyone's going to like it, even the people I love,
Yeah.
and being okay with not being seen. I'm still working
It's
on it.
courage.
Mm-hmm.
Courage.
Mm-hmm. Does that scratch the itch?
Lovely. Lovely share. And an important message for the audience too.
Yeah. Now back to you. Okay, well,
Let's
I'm
go.
gonna get you back. Yeah. So,
Give me your
Derek,
best shot.
what's something you wish people knew about you that they rarely ask?
What is something that I wish people knew about me, but they rarely ask? That my father used to call me, he's like, God, you're just like everyone's favorite cheerleader. And what he means by that is there are certain people that include like myself that we do see the best in people and we come on with a strong positive like, hey, who are you, what's lighting you up, like, God, you look fucking beautiful today and I really like this thing about you. And a lot of people in society, they take a step back and it's, what does this person want from me, why are they telling me these things, what is the angle? And I think that some people, it takes a while to disarm them. I think persistence beats resistance. After a while, they realize, like, oh shit, he's just like that. So I think I would wish people to know that I genuinely, authentically am interested in their story. And I genuinely and authentically do my best to see them. So I think that would be my answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm, I love it. And when it comes to, I share with you, thanks to your question, what my own, I would say, core wound slash pattern that my story continues to resurface for resolution. I'd be curious what your core pattern, lesson, gift, as you wish to name it, has been trying to tell you all along.
The core pattern or wound.
I don't actually like to use the word wound. So I'm going to just remove that for the moment. Let's call it a pattern, right? Because even when I share with you from performance to truth, I don't see that as a wound. The performance piece was a lot of wounding, but from that emerged a gift. And so if you were to reflect upon your life, your story, and look at, wow, this is the thread of me again and again and again and again, transmuting this pattern and, moving up the spiral of evolution, like this is the gift that life continues to give back to me for me to transmute, overcome, and share with others.
The spiraling theme that continually, I've had a very beautiful life, very gifted upbringing, karmic lottery with my family, abundance beyond belief. I mean, I wasn't born in Gaza, I wasn't born in Africa. I was born in a place where dreams are easily fulfilled. So the recurring theme for me has been heartbreak. It's been heartbreak. It's been this thing of like this tremendous capacity to love deeply, to love others, and for it not to be met again and again and again and again, and to ruminate on why that is. And it's like the dynamic tension between like, oh, I need to change, and like, no, I am who I am. It's wanting to be liked. It's wanting to be loved at the same level that I love. And when that hasn't been reciprocated in the past, it's been the most difficult, emotional, logical, and spiritual thing to deal with. Like, the ruminations of a heartbreak for me have been it's almost annoyingly persistent patterns from when I was young, middle school, high school, college, my 20s, my 30s, until now. And it's like, why does this lesson keep showing up? And What is it that I need to let go of? And what is it do I need to surrender into? I'm not going to not love with my fully heart open. Like there's always a choice to close that thing up. But I'm like, no, like I'll take the arrows, I'll take the spears. But finding the happy medium between that and, I mean, we're given tools and lessons and everything else. And ultimately, I think it points to loving yourself and loving God that is yourself. And I understand these concepts, but to see God in the other, God is unity and unicity, right? And it's, that power is like, well, I know everything and I got everything. So this is boring. Let's split into duality, the masculine and the feminine, where we find union together in like seeking and wanting that union consistently on the highest of levels, I think has been the perpetual cycle that I've had to deal with.
Mm. Thank you for
Great
sharing so
question.
vulnerably. Yeah. And
Scorpio moon.
hashtag. And you know, I'm curious. These are really potent questions that you're asking in terms of what do I need to let go of? What do I need to surrender? What is it? And in your ruminations, if you're willing to share, how would you answer your own questions now?
It's the battle with the separate self or the small self that like, being present, being gratitude, having some gratitude. Like I am so grateful. My life is fucking beautiful, and I do what I love and I make art and I'm provided for. And I have a vast community of great friends, including legendary. And I have beautiful connections with women. So it's the small self that when it does not go the way that I want, I find that I am tied to a presupposed timeline of expectation because I am a storyteller and I'm tied to the happily ever after. And I'm tied to this romanticism that we're taught by society and movies, growing up. And I think it's when the separate small self hits me with these pings. It's like the ego is the survival mechanism that's like, okay, what's going wrong? You wake up and it's like the first thing, what's going wrong? Instead of like, what's going right? And it's like all these things are going right, but it ruminates on the one thing, you know, like, you know, I'm not being met, or like, why will she not receive my love? Or why will she not reciprocate it? Or then you start to think, well, what is it? What's wrong with me? And it's not that at all. Like everyone else's stories have their own, traumas and reasons and reasoning, and to project my own shit on them or to believe that what they project on me is actually true.
Mm. Thank you for sharing. I had a mentor once say to me, Celine, your gift is story. And it's also your curse. Because in order for you to tell the best, not tell, to create the
Mm.
best possible story, you need to let go of trying to control the narrative and
Oof.
tell the story in advance and then project it out into the future and try to stick people in as the characters. Says you really have
Oof.
to surrender. I have chills even as I'm remembering that moment. You need to surrender into co-creating the story in real time with Source. And it is so beautifully said, but it is, for me at least, it's been the heart. It's hard, to actually not craft these incredible, beautiful narratives and stick it in the future and then stick little characters in it and be like, oh, that's the best story ever. Like, perfect, done.
Yeah. Wow. This
We're
really,
chasing the story.
that really ruminates a lot because it's like this dynamic tension between, if you understand quantum mechanics and physics, we have the
Mm.
field of all possibility, which is the feminine, and that is the unknown. It is like all the possible ways these stories can pan out. And as soon as we tie to one, we go into the particle, which is the masculine, which is the path.
Mm.
So I think you, you the unaimed arrow misses every fucking time, and you have to be super present, but you have to have some sort of timeline that you're going for, and you want to choose the best timeline. And the indicator is the intuition. Like if you're feeling anxiety towards that timeline, you have to listen to your intuition. And the intuitions are always correct. And I hate it because it's like, oh, but I want this timeline so bad. It's so fucking beautiful. If only, if only, if only. But to surrender to that, and then you clear the field and you allow the unexpected and unanticipated to come in, which is oftentimes the path, right? So if we want this particular thing, like this North Star, oftentimes what happens is, we're given all the possible adversity and difficulties to prevent us from getting that, so we can just become the person to transcend all these things to actually receive what is there. It doesn't look like
Mhm.
the path is never beautiful. It's never fresh and easy, but there's flowers along the way.
Mhm.
So I can
Mhm.
relate to that. What is the unique story that you're trying to tell, Celine?
Me? Are you doing this again?
Last time, I promise.
I'll play ball. Okay, fine. What is the unique story that I'm trying to tell?
Hmm.
Well, I hope not to be trying, first and foremost. I hope I just
Beautiful.
get to tell it. As you were speaking and sharing, which by the way, I love that you insinuated that the feminine is 99.9999% of all. That makes me very happy. Um, as a side
Try
note,
to
but
argue with that,
as
you
you were
guys. Good
sharing,
luck.
what was coming through for me was, and this is actually inspired from a conversation I had with Clint earlier today.
Hmm.
Maybe I don't know what I want. And as you continued to speak, the thoughts that came through were, what if the story God has for me is so much grander than anything I'm just scrambling to come up with right now?
Hmm.
And I was just reminded of that, even in this conversation in real time, as I feel I get stuck in these grooves sometimes of, okay, I know, like this is how it's gonna go down. This month I'm gonna move to this place, and then I'm gonna do this thing with my business, and then this is what's gonna happen with my relationship. I'm just gonna do this, and that. Okay, perfect. It's gonna be great. And then, as you said, there's a challenge, there's an obstacle, and it doesn't work out. And you're like, oh. And then you got to remind yourself, okay, I'm being forged. I'm being forged. I'm being forged. But then it's like the ego comes in and it's like, for what? What are you forging me for? Huh? Because this doesn't look like it's going the way I want it to go. What the fuck is going on? And so I'm just like, where's my husband? Where's my children? Where's like my more relaxed time? Where's my house in front of the beach? What is going on? Hello, people. Is anyone God? Are you watching? Like, what's happening here? And then when you ask me questions like this, I'm like, God, I cannot with a straight face sit here and actually tell you all the things I think I want because I don't actually think I know best.
Hmm.
Oof. And it's so icky to say that, but I don't, I think I keep trying to do better and to know better and to know like I know what's best. But I'm just getting to that point over and over again where I just need to keep giving it to God because it's just not working out the way I think it's gonna.
Surrender is the ultimate. It's presence and surrender and gratitude, I think, that are the most powerful modalities we could ever use to navigate this. And you're saying, well, I don't really know what I want, but you mentioned like 5 different desires that you do want,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that was a beautiful, beautiful reflection and share because we have to want these things. It's like, the Buddhists talk about desire being suffering. If you desire these things, you suffer. But there's another school of thought that it's like, have few desires, but have great ones. You have to desire things in life in order to get them. And we have the capacity to have everything that we want if you set it to surrender to God, to the highest plan, and not be tied to these timelines, but to be aware of them.
Mm-hmm. And that's the work. It's the actual surrendering more than it is, I believe, refining what I want. Because the more I try to get crystal clear on then let me just narrow it down to be exactly like this and all the time and energy I put towards investing and attaching to that, I actually just need to learn how to let go better. That's all. Which
Nailed
brings
it.
us back to heartbreak.
Ah, I knew you wanted to go there.
Ah!
Let's go.
Back to the plot.
It's plot,
I,
ultimately.
what came through for me, a reflection that I'd love to have your take on. When you were sharing about heartbreak and how much you love, I felt this deep sense of compassion and love for this little boy who literally was taught how to love and what it must feel like to grow up with such a special imprint. I mean, if you talk to every single parent in the world and you're like, would you like to like know that your child was going to grow up one day and say that they They hit the karmic lottery and they were so deeply loved and they're so grateful for all the love that you gave them. Like, who wouldn't sign up for that? And to have such a beautiful model, like codes that you carry around that, and
Mm-hmm.
then walking around the world realizing that so many people were not ever taught that.
Mm.
And so many just literally don't even know what it's like
Mm-hmm.
and have to learn it from scratch. And I can
Yeah.
sense this. And again, I don't know. Like, this is, I'm just kind of speaking into air here. And
Mm.
what I'm sensing is how challenging it must have been for you to carry these beautiful gifts and in a world where most people don't even recognize what it is.
Mm. Which is interesting because I did not realize that. We only realize the way the codes were given as a child and the way we navigate through life. You feel that like, oh no, everyone was loved like that and everyone had a great family. And then you start realizing like, no, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the choice here? That tremendous gift, with it comes a responsibility to like, no, I was given lots of love. So now my gift and my responsibility is to walk that path. And that is the desire to have a family one day too. It's, I want to bestow those gifts upon my children so they can carry on that beauty, and that love and whatever it takes. And it's definitely not a sad sorry, like, oh, poor me. I love so much and no one can reciprocate. It's like, no, 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 no. Let me love
Mm.
as unconditional as possible, because there's the whole argument of unconditional love versus conditional love. And I don't think we need to get into that. But it's like, I'm just going to continue to love that way, because what I found with people is that we can't heal people, but we can love them. And ultimately, the love really does heal.
Yeah. Clint read a quote just a few hours ago in our episode from his book. And the quote said, he said, one of the most powerful, I was interviewing him, he said, one of the most powerful insights that he received from his master healer was, you don't need to teach me. You just need to love me. Love will heal. Love will teach. Just love the synchronicity of that and how everything is connected.
Everything
Yeah.
is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to unpack this gift a little bit more. Give us the
Let's go.
codes for, those who are listening who didn't have, the privilege, the incredible gift of having that model to them as they were children, and they're listening and they're like, well, I'm on my journey right now. I'm on the journey of learning what it feels like to receive that kind of love, to learn what it's like to have a family and be in that level of loving presence. What would you say to them?
Hmm. Good question. What comes up for me is love is proactive. It's much less reactive than that. And I think the act of love, I mean, it's a powerful force. Like I've learned from the wisdom of, a mentor, that when they talk about eros and eroticism, and when you go into the ancient texts, it's really the magnetism that brings us all together. It is the link between all human beings. It goes as far as like the magnetism that holds the planets in place in their orbit, and it holds the dynamic tension between everything is a love story between the protons, electrons, and neutrons, and how they come together and coalesce to form molecules, and then those coalesce together to form people, and then we coalesce on the playa together to form legendary, and then the planet in and of itself. And the act of love itself, I mean, it is tied to giving and it is tied to abundance. The more love you give, the more love you receive. The more you give, the more you receive. And in the act of loving someone, you feel good. The person receiving it feels good. And the witness to that love, like when you're at a wedding or you see an old couple at the grocery store helping each other out, when you witness that love, that is also power in of itself. So it works on the personal level, the collective level, the community level, and then the planetary level as well. from the micro to the macro.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's what I would presume not news to a lot of people listening, but the way you hold it is really beautiful. Thank you. And Derek, when you look at the tapestry of your life right now and what you're creating and where you're going, what would you say is the impact that you're most committed to living in the world?
Because of all the gifts bestowed upon me in this beautiful life and all of us, just to have this experience that is unique in the cosmos. All of our stories are unique. There's only one Celine walking and talking her story. There's only one Derek walking and talking his story. Our connection, you and I, is unique in the cosmos. There is no other Celine and Derek having this conversation in the multiverse. So when you connect with anyone, realize that that love story is unique in and of itself. And as far as you seeing the tapestry of life and how I proceed, to keep walking this path of love, to love others, to love the process, to love your enemy, to love adversity. By surrendering to these things, we're able to accept them more. And how do I transmute and alchemize this path into storytelling? How do I really tell the ultimate love story in my films?
Mm.
Not only embodying that first, but then telling it, because this is the unique story that this particular unique story is the only one that I can tell personally. And
Mm.
it is the greatest goal of my lifetime, figuring this out at a young age. And 35 years later, I'm still on this path. And, to have gratitude for the people that have come into my life. And then when I look at the chessboard, it's like, oh, I have all the right people and I have all the right skills. And it's taken my entire life to get to this point. So the stress and the tremendous goal of really doing this is the most massive thing I can do as a storyteller, is to tell the story. It's, everything ultimately is relationship, and relationship to people, relationship to our environment, relationship to our morals. And these relationships are love. And to tell those stories with music, with beautiful scenarios, with beautiful stories, to get people out of their daily lives and to realize, to feel something that they haven't felt, the power of cinema.
Mhm.
That would be my path. It is my path, and I will fulfill it to the very end.
I love it. My biggest takeaway from this conversation is how do I tell the ultimate love story in my own unique way?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what it is that you do in life, for you, quote unquote, the path is visual cinema. For me, it's communication, language.
Mm-hmm.
For someone else, it's music. For someone else, it's healing. For someone else, it's having the most incredible furniture store there is. I think we can, whatever path, whoever's listening, whatever it is that you do, it is it's not about that so much as it is asking that deeper question, because that question is coded, and it is
Mm.
coded with that pattern that we share, that like the pattern that you've been able to transmute again and again and again and again, as it pertains to heartbreak, as it pertains to love, and how do you, drop the people pleasing and become more of who you are. And from that place, your unique way of seeing the world actually offers us a great gift,
Mm.
which is this invitation. How do we tell the ultimate love story in our own unique way? That's what I took away from
That's a beautiful distillation. I really love
that.
that. And there's something that you mentioned, how, we're talking about music, we're talking about film, and you mentioned something that can't be overlooked. And you said communication. This
Yeah.
is what you're doing with these podcasts. And this is, when you think of the words communication, commune, communication, it's the act of communing and connecting. Then you think of community, it's unity, community. And then the ultimate ceremony is communion, union through communication.
Mm.
So communication has tremendous depth and power. And we're living in an era that communication is paramount, like these podcasts and the way we communicate through story, through myth, through our connections, through story time. We've sat around fires for the eternity of our race, and whether it's in person or over the webs or connecting with an audience, you never know who or how you're going to touch by
Mhm.
communicating.
Mhm. What a beautiful little gift you just gave me. I'm going to take that one in my pocket. Didn't think
Do it.
about the roots of communication.
Hmm.
That's where my path is.
Hmm. It's an important path, and it's a beautiful one.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so far, you're crushing it.
Yeah. Well, it requires you to communicate. Gotta say
It's the
that
most
much.
important thing. Any
Spoiler
relationship,
alert.
any relationship, any relationship at all. It's like when you distill everything down, it's like, why does this relationship work? Why is it not working? Why is this job working? It's always down to impeccable communication. Like you said earlier, to speak the hard truths, to speak in a way that you might not be liked, but radical authenticity and radical honesty comes through impeccable communication. At the end of the day, in the age of information, that is the greatest tool and gift.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, as we begin to close out today's conversation, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask everyone on the show. Don't think twice about it. What does legendary mean to you?
Legendary. The legendary playground of the gods. Ultimately, we all have God nature. We all come from the same ocean. We're all just drops. And when we come together in cohesion as God, through God, and play, through play, I mean, this incarnation is a playground. And if we're not playing, then what's the fucking point? Then I think the Burning Man is the ultimate ceremony of ceremonies where everyone can just bring their radical, authentic self to the table. And the cohesion and magic that happens, the synchronicities, the connections, the love stories that we make throughout that is the substrate of what the legendary playground of the gods is. I camped with them for the first time this year, and I didn't know. It was by circumstance that I joined. I was helping my employer drive an RV, and he goes, "You want to make it to the burn this year?" And I'd written it off for several years because the last few times I went was with my beloved at the time, who I thought was the love of my life, and it was just emotionally loaded. And then I moved to Austin from California, so logistically it was a lot more difficult. So I was sitting there, and I was just like, you know what? After I went to the Texas Eclipse Festival, and it reawakened my festival energy, and I was like, you know what? I'm open. If the playa wants me this year, she'll spread her legs and be like, "Come, child." And then I got asked that week later, "Hey, do you want to come to the burn with us? We're camping with Legendary Playground." And I go, "Sounds great." And as soon as I arrived, I was greeted by the most beautiful people. And it was like people I knew from San Diego years ago, and then people from Austin that I knew, and people from Fit for Service. And then the collective energy of the people gathered in Legendary is just, Burning Man feels like family and community, and that Legendary feels like the inner family. So to do
Mhm.
legendary things, playing like gods, is such an honor. And I'm excited to return to that same playground this year, bringing my radical expression, radical authenticity, and everything to the table, because that's what everyone else is bringing. And to
Mhm.
witness the magic, what happens by being legends in our own right, is what myths are made of. Legends and myths. This is stuff that will resonate not only in the playa, but to the rest of the world when we come back. So that's what it means to
Beautiful.
me.
I love it. Well, Derek, you are off the hot seat.
Bummer. I was just getting started. I want to hear your iteration of what legendary means to you.
Oh gosh, you're just bag full of. So you told me it was the last one, but okay, I will allow it. This is we're at the end. Gosh, what does legendary mean to me? When I think of the word legend, what I see is the very thing we were speaking into at the beginning of this conversation. I see stories of Greek and Roman mythology. I see the stories that grandmothers tell around the campfire to the tribe. And all of those are legends. And so when I feel into the word legendary, the question that comes through is, what does it take? What does it mean to become a legend? It's an invitation.
Mm.
It's actually a little scary. It brings up the, but I don't belong here, which I know is there's quite a, I've spoken even as I speak to people in the camp, there's sometimes that slight imposter syndrome that I think doesn't even come from the tribe. It literally comes from the field, that even the word, and never mind the incredible humans that are inside it, evokes, which is, oof, am I okay, but I'm here. I'm here. I've been asked to be here. I belong here. So what gives? And it starts this inquiry of, well, if I'm a legend, if I am legendary, then I need to see myself a little better.
Yes.
I need to look for it. If I don't believe in it, I need to look for it. I need to allow myself to be held and mirrored through the connections and the tribe and these conversations that we're having, where it's like, wait, I'm what? I'm who? You saw what about me? And I
You
went,
are.
oh, okay, I'm that. Okay, I'm that. And I'm that. And you're this. Wait, if you're this and we're friends, then that means ... So there's
Yes.
this process of deep discovery. And to me, the way I hold it is a literal, like, what if I were someone that somebody ever told a story around the campfire for, what would I have done? Who would I have been? And that feels
Yes.
important to me. It feels like it's the story that my great-grandchildren will be telling about their ancestor.
Mm.
So how can I step into that identity? Yeah, that's my take on it.
Mm. You owe it to the world, and you owe it to Legendary to be a legend and create the legends that your ancestors will, whether they know it firsthand or they feel it in their DNA. That is the responsibility here.
Yeah.
I love that. I expect to see that legend on the playa this year.
Yeah. I'm in. I'm doing it. Can feel my ancestors. They're
They
so
are
happy.
yelling. They want
They're
the
like,
best version of you
yeah,
showing up. There's no other
represent.
recourse. Yeah. Beautiful.
There you go. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share before we close today's conversation?
Just thank you for this great opportunity to get to know you better and to chat about things I hadn't thought about, and to allow me to share my story and to continue for this to reverberate into the path of more storytelling. Yeah, thank you so much for the beautiful questions and for your beautiful presence. And thank you for all the listeners, if you listen all the way through, for being interested in our stories.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming, Derek, and sharing all of your wisdom. And dear listeners, Legendary fam, this is Celinne, your host for Legendary, and I will see you in the next conversation. Thank you for walking with us through the fires of remembrance. If today's story stirred something in your soul, share it with a fellow god or goddess. Subscribe to Legendary for more transmissions from our tribe, and may you continue weaving your legend in love and joy. Until next time, stay sovereign, stay sacred, and make it legendary.